The last photo was a small room, no windows, concrete floor, a single chair positioned in the center under a bare bulb, and a caption beneath it that said 7 words I have never been able to forget. "She's coming home tomorrow. Everything is ready." There were no posts after that. The blog went silent, and 48 hours after I found it, the entire site was wiped from the internet like it had never existed. I don't know who built that room. I don't know who she was. I don't know if she ever came home or what home meant to the person who built it. And that not knowing, that specific, unanswerable not knowing, is the thing that has stayed with me ever since. This is the only thing I have ever seen on the internet that made me feel physically sick. There was a version of the internet that most people have completely forgotten about. Not the internet you grew up with, not MySpace or early YouTube or AIM away messages. Earlier than that, the layer underneath the blogs and personal pages and self-hosted websites that people built in the mid-2000s, before social media swallowed everything whole. Back then, anyone could spin up a blogspot site in 15 minutes and publish whatever they wanted to whoever might find it. No algorithm deciding who saw it, no engagement metrics, no followers to perform for, just a person, a keyboard, and the strange open field of the early web. Most of those sites were completely ordinary. People documented their gardens, their recipes, their home renovation projects. They wrote about their days into a digital space that felt more like a private journal than a public broadcast. Those sites still exist, technically, buried, unindexed by modern search engines, invisible to anyone who isn't specifically looking for them. A graveyard of ordinary digital lives that nobody ever came back to delete. Most of what you find there is exactly what it looks like. Ordinary people, ordinary lives. Most of it. I was the kind of person who spent hours doing this, deep diving into the unindexed corners of the old web. Not looking for anything specific, just looking. There's a particular feeling you get when you find something genuinely old and forgotten online, like opening a box in someone's attic, like reading a letter that was never meant to be sent. I'd found strange things before, abandoned grief journals, a blog that had documented in obsessive detail the daily weather patterns of a town in rural Ohio for 11 years before stopping without explanation, a photography site full of beautiful, deeply unsettling images of empty roads at night, posted weekly for 2 years, and then never again. The internet was full of quiet mysteries like that. I had learned not to read too much into them. People abandoned projects, people moved on. The absence of an ending didn't always mean something dark. It usually just meant life had intervened, and the blog had been forgotten, like a notebook left in a drawer. That's what I told myself the first time I found Project Progress 2006. The site looked completely unremarkable. A standard blogspot layout, one of the default templates from that era. It was titled something so boring, I almost scrolled past it. Project Progress 2006. The kind of name that implies spreadsheets and quarterly reviews and absolutely nothing worth reading. The first few posts confirmed that impression. Drywall installation, plumbing rough-in, floorboard replacement in what the blogger described as the upstairs hallway. The photos were grainy and slightly overexposed, the way digital cameras were in 2006. The captions were informational, clinical almost. No personality, no warmth, just documentation. I almost closed the tab. Instead, I kept scrolling back through the archive. Months of posts. A genuine home renovation, documented with the tedious thoroughness of someone who wanted a record of the process. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have held my attention. And then, I reached the posts from the basement. The shift was gradual. That's the part I keep coming back to, how slowly it changed, and how that slowness made it worse. The first basement post looked fine. A concrete space, unfinished, the kind of basement that looks like every other basement in every other house. Standard low ceiling, exposed pipes, a workbench along one wall. The caption said he was planning to convert it into a utility room. A few posts later, the framing had gone up. Walls being built inside the existing space, subdividing it into smaller rooms. Still normal. People build basement rooms all the time. Then, the walls got thicker. Not noticeably at first, but as I kept scrolling backward through the dates, the insulation between the framing was layered in a way that didn't make sense for a standard utility room. Multiple layers. The kind of layering that has a specific purpose. A purpose that has nothing to do with keeping a room warm. It absorbs sound. I sat with that for a moment. Told myself there were explanations. A home studio. A practice space for a musician. People built soundproofed rooms for legitimate reasons. Then the doors appeared in the photos. Steel, heavy gauge from what I could tell from the images, hinged in a way that suggested they swung outward, not inward, with hardware on the outside. No windows in any of the rooms. And then, in a post dated several months into the project, a detail that made my stomach drop completely. Floor drains. Installed in rooms that had no plumbing connection. No sink, no toilet, no water source of any kind. Just drains in the floor. I want to stop here for a second because I need you to understand what I was looking at. Floor drains in a room with no plumbing. Soundproofed walls. Steel doors that lock from the outside. No windows. There are people who build rooms like this for completely innocent reasons. Film photography dark rooms, wine cellars, certain types of workshop spaces. I ran through every alternative explanation I could construct. None of them required floor drains. The captions had changed by this point. The informational tone was gone. Where the early posts had said things like, frame installed, moving to insulation next week, the later posts had become strings of numbers, dates, measurements, dimensions of the rooms and figures that I wrote down and couldn't stop looking at. Small rooms. Very small. I kept scrolling. I don't know why I kept scrolling. Some part of me needed to see where it ended. The final post was dated about 8 months after the first. The photo showed a finished room. Concrete floor, clean now, the drain visible as a dark circle near the center. Bare walls, the steel door open just enough to show the locking mechanism on the outside. A single bulb overhead switched on, throwing a flat, pale light across everything. And in the center of the room, a chair. One chair. No table. Nothing else. Just a chair positioned directly under the light. The caption read, "She's coming home tomorrow. Everything is ready." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Long enough that the rest of the room around me seemed to go quiet. That particular feeling of cold that starts somewhere in your chest and moves outward. I went back to every post looking for any mention of a person, any name, any pronoun I might have missed. Nothing. 8 months of construction documentation with no reference to another human being, until those 7 words at the end. I tried everything I could think of to find more information. I looked for metadata in the photos, I searched for the blog's IP address, I tried to find any other site connected to the same account. I wasn't an expert at this, I was just a person on the internet who had stumbled onto something and couldn't look away from it. Within 48 hours of me finding the site, it was gone. Completely wiped. The URL returned nothing. The cached version disappeared. Every trace of Project Progress 2006 removed from the internet as cleanly as if it had never been posted. I don't know if that was a coincidence. I don't know if someone saw that I had visited the page. I don't know what the technology of that era would have allowed someone to track. I only know that it disappeared. And that I was left with nothing but my own memory of what I had seen. I reported what I could remember to the relevant authorities. A description of a website, a title, a rough date range for the posts, 7 words from a caption, and a photograph of a room with a chair in it. I don't know what happened after that. I was never contacted again. I have no way of knowing if it led anywhere. I have no way of knowing who built those rooms, or why, or who she was, or whether she is okay. That not knowing is permanent. There is no update to this story. There is no resolution coming. She's coming home tomorrow. Everything is ready. Whoever she was, wherever she is, I hope she's okay. I hope the explanation for that room was innocent, and I hope she never knew it existed. I hope the person who built it was disturbed but harmless, and that the site was wiped because they thought better of posting it publicly. I hope all of that. But hope isn't the same as knowing. And I have never been able to fully convince myself. The early internet had no gatekeepers. That was its greatest gift and its deepest danger. Anyone could publish anything, and it floated in the open web until it didn't. until it was forgotten or deleted or buried deep enough that only the most deliberate searchers would ever find it. We talk about the dark web like it's a separate place, like the dangerous parts of the internet are somewhere else, behind passwords and technical barriers most people will never cross. But they weren't always. In the mid-2000s, the line between the ordinary web and the strange web was just a matter of how far back you scrolled, how many pages deep you clicked, how much attention you were willing to pay to things that weren't designed to be found. Most of what you found was harmless. Ordinary people, ordinary lives, forgotten ordinary things. But the internet never required you to be ordinary to use it. And not everyone who built something in a quiet corner of Blogspot in 2006 was documenting a home renovation. Some doors, once you open them, stay open. Some things once seen cannot be unseen. And some questions asked into the void of an early internet that no longer exists in the form it once did will simply never be answered. I still think about her. I probably always will.
If this story sat with you, if that particular feeling of something being deeply wrong stayed with you the way it stayed with me, this channel exists for exactly that feeling. The stories that don't leave you. The ones from a version of the internet that felt wilder and stranger and less monitored than anything we have now. Subscribe to Logged Off HQ, because there are more of these stories out there, and some of them are still waiting to be found.